Okay, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. What's up? This is the Comedy the King. Uh, I've been wanting to do this for a while. Basically, you see the thumbnail. It's a review of Superman. I've always kind of wanted to do reviews of movies that I've seen, especially comic book movies. I'm a comic book nerd. I'm a nerd about a lot of stuff like anime, comic books, all that kind of stuff. So I've always wanted to do stuff like this. I don't know. I was like, you know what? I saw both movies. I saw Superman 3 times. I saw Fantastic Four 3 times. I'm a nerd. I love both movies. I have my opinions on both. I do want to get to Superman now because I feel like I have the most to say and the most probably over seen the movie a couple times and a whole bunch of stuff, right? Got my opinions formed and basically, do I like the movie or not? I'm just gonna if you don't want to watch the rest of this, I thought the movie was great. The movie was amazing. I originally I was a little worried with James Gunn. I am a big fan of Guardians of the Galaxy. I love his remake with, I think, Zack Snyder that he did with Dawn of the Dead. I didn't watch that movie at all until I was very much older because I was a coward. But that was definitely like a movie I would Dawn of the Dead, love that movie. And then he got to start with Guardians. That's kind of where I feel like everybody my age and people who didn't watch his other films like kind of got introduced to him. And I mean, Guardians 1 was revolutionary. You know what I mean? Like that was the start of that movie literally set the MCU to where it is now. Like if you go back before Guardians, there was just a different vibe. Like that's how influential Guardians 1 was and how everything just worked with Guardians of the Galaxy. And dude went from Guardians, then got fired, then got rehired, then got fired, then went to DC, made Suicide Squad of his version, which was great movie. I actually really liked that movie. And then came back for Guardians 3 and then made Peacemaker. And now he's the whole owner of, or one of the co-creators for DC Studios, kind of like Kevin Feige-esque. So I thought that was pretty cool. There was so much, I mean, it was crazy to be around that time. Like what 2020 right after the pandemic, it was just WB was in a different place. There was a lot of restructure going on in the company. So yeah, it was just like a lot of stuff was changing and a lot of movies were in production when that was going down. So we starting the clock back with another starting fresh with a new universe was definitely it was definitely something that we haven't seen before, and we're all like, oh wow, we're just starting from scratch. I know like at the time people were a little skeptical. I feel like now everybody's like, okay, we're kind of on board with this. But when it first came out, everybody was like, what? Henry Cavill is gone? Oh, Ben Affleck? And I'm again, I love those interpretations. I love all those actors and all those people, and I'll still, I still like that universe. But I feel like everybody was curious to see what James Gunn was doing. I have not seen Creature Commandos. I do got to check that out. I heard from one of my buddies that it was a pretty good show. And that was kind of like, I think it's the start of this universe. That's like the first thing that, because again, it's gods and monsters. So we're not only is he focusing on like the heroic superheroes, that are like very human-esque, he's also highlighting the kind of like the weirdo creatures, like, I think we're getting a Clayface, or like maybe down the line we're probably gonna get a Swamp Thing movie or something like that. Stuff like that. I'm just kind of talking about my thoughts on that whole thing before I get to Superman. But yeah, it was interesting. But now going into Superman, this was a big deal, man. This was kind of like Creature Commandos came out. That was like, okay, we're having fun. That was like that's, I would say, yeah, passion project. But this was like, okay, for a lot of people, this was like the start of the universe. Like, okay, what? Like everybody was watching. Like, is this gonna like this movie, how much, no matter where you were on whether you liked that first teaser, whether you liked the suit, whether you liked the casting, this movie was the sell for the entire new universe going forward from this point. Like this movie was like, this movie had a lot to live up to. Like this is the start. So this was like, this movie couldn't fail. Like it could not fail because this movie had to do well, because this was the start of an entire universe. For a lot of people, and for most people, even with the marketing, it said it begins. That doesn't mean this new Superman. It means this new universe. Because, like metahumans already exist, and this Superman has been around for, I think 2 to 3 years at that point. But now we're just getting into the movie at this point. Yeah, this is a new take. Honestly, man, I was so on board from the trailers that I saw, and David Cornsweet, Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner, which I thought was a perfect casting. I love Nathan Fillion. So I always thought I was very on board. It was kind of like, is it? Let's just wait and see at that point, and everybody I talked to was very excited. They were like scared, excited, but everybody was like, this movie, this is the summer of Superman. I'll say it also Fantastic Four. That movie did pretty well as well, but all eyes were on Superman, because I was like, whoa, this is like the beginning of a whole other, maybe like 3 decades of a franchise, if that's even gonna happen. Like this is like, by the time, I don't know where we're gonna go from here. Maybe it's like by the time we head to, I guess, Crisis on Infinite Earths, if they're ever gonna do that, I'll probably be in my 40s or 30s or some shit. So like I've already, it's kind of like, wow, I'm wrapping my head around that. Because MCU, that started when I was a kid. But yeah, it's basically, to go into the movie, I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was great. I love the acting. I love the performances. I love the action. I love the character drama. James Gunn is really good at writing people, and that's one of the biggest strengths I've always thought he's always had, in my opinion. He really knows how to write characters and people. Lovable, jackasses, all that stuff. He's always been great at writing characters and like and making them, or like turning characters that maybe were a heroic or like super stoic or had a person had a certain way of being, and then giving them a personality, like making every character, like there's a lot of care with how he writes everybody in his movies, that they're all 3-dimensional, so I've always appreciated that with him. That being said, and that goes into why, in my opinion, I'm like, David Cornsweet, this is like the best, in my opinion, this is the best Superman adaptation since Christopher Reeves. Like I'm just gonna keep it a buck. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. This is the best version of the character I've seen in a long time, and I've been around. I mean, I haven't been like, I was a kid when Superman Returns came out. I was around when Man of Steel came out. I was like a year like watching the DC. I thought that was pretty cool. And then I got into Smallville. Like I ended up watching Smallville like way after all of that. Like in high school, and I had it was on Hulu, and I just kind of binged all 10 seasons, and to me, that's my version of Superman and Lex Luthor. Like that's 10 seasons of that. Like if just by going what I personally believe and like about because every Superman's been around for years, for decades, almost I believe 80 years, right? So everybody has their version that they started with and they like, and that's where they hold that standard into, okay, this is my version, so I'm always going to directly compare it to the other ones. Because let's say Christopher Reeve wasn't the first Superman, but everybody compares him to everybody else because he was so good. Because that was the first adaptation, or that was most people's first viewing of Superman, and it kind of carried into now from this point on forward, like it's gonna be like, oh, specifically for Christopher Reeve, like he was so good, everybody's in his likeness. And I mean, I love Tom Welling and Michael Rosenbaum. I mean, I'm the biggest Smallville fan. Me and my brother's wife, we love that show. Like, she watched it when she was growing up. I watched it high school, like years after it already ended. So like, yeah. I love Smallville. I think it's one of my favorite CW shows. That is definitely the adaptation I hold very dear to my heart. That kind of, and it's funny too, because like a lot of the characters, well, not characters, a lot of the actors, like Nicholas Hoult and David Cornsweet, especially Nicholas Hoult, like you could tell, like I feel like this is an adaptation that's a lot for me, because you can tell that even Gunn and the writing and this adaptation is very much has a lot of similarities to Smallville. I mean, even Nicholas Hoult admitted that, like, I personally think Michael Rosenbaum was the best Lex Luthor, and Nicholas, on his podcast, even directly was like, yeah, I my version is inspired by Smallville Lex, which I thought that was always cool. And Nicholas Hoult is an amazing actor. So it's just cool. It's cool. I think the movie was amazing. You can tell. I mean, James Gunn in the past was like, yeah, we don't need to see Batman, Bruce Wayne's parents die. We don't need to see Martha and Thomas die. We don't need to see the death of Krypton. So we're just gonna go straight into the character and the movie, and just like everything we'll get maybe like subtext throughout the movie, but we all know the story. We all know these characters have been around for years. We all know the origin. So I always thought that was pretty cool. I do wish there was at least a montage. The text in the very beginning of the movie, like wasn't bad. I thought that did help us get, because we're getting thrown into it, and that was kind of the point. It's meant to feel like a comic book. You open up a comic book of a character and you're just kind of thrown in. You don't know anything about them, but you're just kind of like, okay, here's subtext. Here's, in case this is your first comic ever, here's the origin, who he is, and then boom, here's the story. So it was, yeah, in that sense, I think it was pretty cool. But I don't know. I feel like this is something that I was thinking about, and I've seen this movie 3 times. At first I was kind of like, I think the movie's great. I liked it, but there were things where I do think it could have done a little bit better. Specifically, and it's so funny because the things are like they're not really problems. They're more just not enough screen time. I think that, I think personally, this movie is great, but it didn't really live up to the potential that it could have been. And I only say that because of the fact that it's not just Superman, it's also Superman, Guy Gardner, Mr. Terrific, and Hawkgirl. Again, those that in itself is not a bad thing, but I feel like since we don't really know, since we're kind of thrown in, I mean, yes, we know the origin of Superman, but this Superman is I feel like most characters, even if it's a different take or it's a more whatever version of a character is, we should at least at least have some like subtext. I mean, we do get subtext, but I think that David and, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I forgot the actress's name, for the actress who played Lois Lane. I thought the entire cast of the Daily Planet, Clark, Lois, Jimmy, Kat, Steve, Perry, I thought they were all amazing casting. And I've always, because I've seen comics, and I've all those characters in Jimmy Olsen, and again, like I said, the Smallville show, I've always wanted to see a show, an adaptation that like really tried to do the cast of all those characters in the Daily Planet, because I feel like most of the time you get your Lois, you get Perry, and then you get Jimmy, and then you don't really get anybody else. You may get like, oh, here's Kat, you may get Cat here and there or other characters, but I mean, granted, like they don't. Those are Jimmy, Lois, and Clark are the main trio, but I wanted more. Like we got like we got enough. I thought what the screen time they had was cool, but I also I really wanted to see a little bit more. I feel like this movie. I feel one thing that I did. It did feel like to me that this movie, I guess, in a sense, wanted to be longer. Like it. I feel like it's kind of something I'm going to talk about with Fantastic Four, where it's like you see ripples of other side stories, not even just side stories, but more. You see that there was more to do with this character. Like, oh, there's something going on. Like, like subtext. Like there's something going on with these characters, but we don't really know, or we can't give enough time to fully flesh that idea out. Because oh shit, Lex Luthor. Oh shit, the Justice Gang. Like, I think one of the moments in the film that I noticed watching it, and I was like, it was when it was going back into Monday. I mean, the movie has like different days, like, okay, Superman, and then he goes back to work with the Daily Planet. We get there's an idea that I saw that they tried to push, where, because in the very beginning we see that this version of Superman is very, he very much idolizes Jor-El and Lara. I think that I'm saying Laura or Lara, that is his parents, his biological parents, his Kryptonian parents. Like when he's getting healed because he just got fucked up by Ultraman back in Metropolis. Even healing, like when the Superman robots pick him up and he's like, oh, he like play him the recording of Jor-El and Lara. He finds it soothing. And like as he's going into the pod to get healed by the sun, he's like it's like they're playing it as like a comfort. It's kind of like, I wouldn't, it's like he really, it's like I don't even know what to say. It's like he really idolizes those this version of his biological parents. I feel like in a lot of he tried to do something, and I thought what he did was cool. People talked about like, oh wow, it turns out Jor-El and Lara are the twist that ends up happening with them not being actually the best of people and not really sending Clark to do good as he thought it was, because again, it was only a small part of the message, because half of it got cut off when he came in and crashed down. You could tell that he really idolizes his biological parents, but when he's going into the Daily Planet, he's like talking to his mom, and his mom and dad are very sweet. I love John. By the way, I just love Jonathan and Martha in this. They're I think this is how we've always seen kind of like the more I wouldn't say pretty, but I guess like regular, like, okay, yeah, they're farm people, but like you could tell James Gunn really wanted to make this like, okay, these are people from Kansas and these are people that raised them, and it's very endearing. Like what would like real Kansas people look like, and I thought that was interesting because with his values and how he grew up in Kansas, and going to the movie about how like the punk rock and stuff, his like the people he listened to in Smallville and Kansas. I thought that was pretty cool. But one thing, it kind of I felt that like there was an idea that he wanted to explore where he places more respect and time on Jor-El and Lara than he does Jonathan and Martha. Cause in the when he's talking to him, it's kind of, yeah, he's busy and he's walking into the Daily Planet. It's always big, but you can tell like maybe he's like I got the vibe he was being a little dismissive, or like, it's like, oh yeah, like, and because like again in the at spoilers, just going straight to the end, because when he's healing or when he's sleeping, he's playing the recording of Jarrell and Laura at the very end of the movie, because after the whole arc with him being like, it's not what your parents set for you, it's who you are as a person, it's your actions define you, not your biological parents. And at the very end he plays instead Jonathan and Martha in his childhood at Earth. So it's like an arc where it's like I'm gonna be more like my Earth parents instead of my biological parents. So there was an arc there where it's like I feel like maybe he tried to do something with like, oh, maybe he doesn't, because they said like, oh, they haven't seen him in a while, he's been very busy, not really available, and you could tell like, hey, they really want to talk to him, but he's like always busy and stuff like that. I wanted more of that. I thought that was a really interesting, because most times most adaptations, Jonathan is dead. Like any movie or show, aside from Smallville, because that's the origin story. That's a whole show where it's like that was young Clark Kent. Most adaptations, when Superman is an adult, it's just Martha alive. Jonathan has always passed away from like either a heart attack or the tornado in Man of Steel, where he put his hand up and was like, "No, son, let me die," or like fucking or just in Smallville where like I think at the time it was like, oh, you're gonna, spoilers, if you're, it was by destiny, you saved someone else, now someone else you love is gonna die, that kind of like if you ever watch Full Metal, the law of equivalent exchange, it was kind of like an exchange of that, like, oh, you save one person, but you take another life by trying to rectify that problem. Balance needs to happen, that kind of shit. Yeah, I thought there was more. The reason why I say like I think there need to be more time with, I feel like there should have been more time with Superman as a character, getting to really know this Clark Kent, and that's crazy because like, if my biggest complaint about the film is that there's not enough time for Clark and Lois, because they're so good at these characters, and you just want to see more of them. That's like the highest praise, and that's the like, the casting is so good. Like that's my my most major complaint about the film. I feel like like the James Gunn mentioned in the past where he was trying to find an end with the Superman film. I could see that he's more used to doing the team up films, which I always adore. I always like those team up films, like Suicide Squad, Guardians. That's Creature Commandos even too. From what I heard, it was pretty cool. I feel like that's his comfort zone. I liked it. But I do think that the movie wasn't really living up to its full potential. Just because I feel there should have been a lot more time centered around Clark and this version of Superman, because he's so likable, and the message about like your actions will define you, and like you see all the time like, yo, positive masculinity, like be kind to everybody. That's awesome. And oh my god, this movie has so many good moments where of course Mr. Terrific and Guy Gardner, and then like, oh my god, the raising of the flag. One thing that raising of the flag, a big one, when in Moravia, I think that's the name of the country in this film, that like is in peril, and is like a whole big political thing going on, that's like, oh, if should have Superman, like they say, Superman intervened with that, and that's why Ultraman came and whooped his ass. So yeah, I think it was, I love the Justice Gang, and you can tell that those were I feel like Mr. Terrific's scene, it was Mr. Terrific's fight scene. We all know, man, fun, like that scene was probably the best in the film. I think that was really cool. That shit it's just insane, and like, just I don't know. I'm not a big, like, I'm a DC fan. I'm not. That's an obscure character as far as I know. Not like Lobo, Blue Beetle. They always talk about the other characters. I mean, I've watched the Justice League animated shows. I don't really recall Mr. Terrific being a part of that. Maybe he was. It's been so long, but that's an it's a well loved character, but like it's like, oh, nobody like kind of like, oh, he doesn't get the recognition he deserves. So I do appreciate Mr. Terrific being this. This was if like I appreciate that this was the first like exposure to Mr. Terrific in a film or any adaptation. If there was a cartoon, I'm pretty sure there is one, but for most people, So I think that that was pretty cool. I actually really want to see. I'll watch a Mr. Terrific movie. I'll watch a show. I thought his actor who played him, I remember him from X-Men First Class. He was really good as Mr. Terrific. I'm goddamn Mr. Terrific. So it's like, I love that. And Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner killed it. I actually really like Isabella Merced as Hulker. I thought she was really funny. I feel like she should have gotten a little bit more screen time, but I think she was really cool with that. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like they were so good. Like Clark and this version of Superman was so much a lot more relatable than most. And I feel like no matter what your stance on the film, like whether it was good or it was okay or whatever, maybe you wanted more screen time like I did. I thought you thought it was good, but maybe you wanted a little bit more from the Superman characters, more say than the other Justice League or other superhero characters. Like, you know what I mean? Like in a Superman film, I kind of wanted more Superman characters to do stuff. I mean, because I don't think people say like, oh, it's his comfort zone, so he likes to do team up movies, so that's why those characters are there. I don't know. I feel like he could have worked a way in to make like he already had a cast of characters with the reporters, the Daily Planet people. I thought they should have had a little bit more screen time. Because I feel like there's a lot of shit you could do. Steve, kind of being a reckless asshole or like just like snarky, and then Jimmy Olsen. I thought he was really good at Jimmy Olsen. Cat Grant, and then Lois. Again, the one of the things is like what most people say about Lois is in this film is that she's so good. Like I said, just like Clark Kent and Superman, they're so good that you want to see more of them. And I mean, yeah, like I would have if this movie was called Superman and His Amazing Friends or Superman or World's Finest or Superman or Legacy, like the original title went back before they changed it to just Superman. I think they changed that title during filming because I remember for a while it was called Superman Legacy, like when we first got the announcement of the film. And it's funny, Legacy makes a lot more sense now because that actually would have been a good title because of the message with of the whole Kryptonian stuff. Yeah, it's I liked it. I thought I'm gonna give this a 9. I'm gonna give this a 9.5. I'm gonna give it a 9. I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. This was honestly, to me, like, it's a great film, great superhero film, a lot of laughs. I actually did like the comedy. I thought it was really fun. It was a very fun film and with a great message behind it too. But I would say if I can rate this, if I can put this in Superman, well, this is easy for me. Like, where would I rate this in Superman films? This is hands down the best Superman film since the original Christopher Reeve movies. Like, that's just not even a competition. Like, and people are saying this online as well, and I agree. Like, this is the Superman. I'm gonna call it Superman 25 because like it's called Superman, but like that thing where like it's Batman or Spider-Man, but it's not like it's not like there already was a movie called Spider-Man or the first movie. So like like how like the Batman, they instead of just calling it Batman, the Batman. This one was just called Superman. So I feel like, I mean, I watched Nostalgia Critic, and I feel like he had a change for the movie because you talk about like Christopher Reeve Superman. That's another movie that had the same title. So I feel like maybe next year or years after, I think the name of this movie, I like, at least in like the general consensus, should be Superman 25, because the year 2025, just like Superman back in the 80s, I believe, right? Superman, the first Christopher Reeve movie came out in like 87 or something around there. But they call it like for example, like they call it Batman. They don't just call it Batman. They call it Batman 89, because there are a lot of other movies that have Batman, and it's just called Batman. You know, like which Batman you're referring to. So they always call Batman 89 because it came out in 1989. So I feel like, you know, my rating for Superman 25, I give it a 9 out of 10. Superman 25 is the best Superman movie since Superman 2 with Zod. And that's the top three. I feel like that's the Mount Rushmore. You got Superman 1, Superman 2, and Superman 25. That is like, I think that's the top three Superman films. Where would I rate this in my, because I've seen a lot of comic book movies. I've seen a shit ton. Where would I rate this? Time will tell. I'll probably go back and forth from where I would rate this. I will say, to me, I think this movie is better than Man of Steel. I'm just gonna come out right. I'm just gonna come out and say, like, I think it's better than Man of Steel. I actually do. I do like Man of Steel, but I think that this movie is a lot more comic accurate and a lot more accurate to the portrayal of the character and what he represents. It does it a lot better than a lot of adaptations, you know. So I think that's why I rate Superman. It's again Superman 1, 2, and Superman 25. That's my rating. Like if I can say like Superman movies, that's my top three so far, and I don't think that's gonna change, because like unless the sequel is so much better and then it defeats the last two, or even maybe it's better than the first movie. Time will tell. But I've already talked enough. But yeah, this is just me, no script, just rambling about comic book movies. This is what I do on my podcast all the time. I've been wanting to do stuff like this a lot more. But yeah, this is what I wanted to do for a while. I hope y'all enjoyed this. My take. You know, I want to give it time for the movie to simmer, and then we can, like, you know, I wanted the bias to go away, because again, it came out not too long ago, a couple weeks ago. So I wanted there to be a little time before we all like all right, what's the general consensus? And I think, yeah, it's not a perfect movie. I think it was a great movie though. I think it's like better than a lot of superhero movies that have come out recently. I'll say I think I'll leave it for the Fantastic Four review if like it's the best Superman, if it's the best superhero movie that came out this year. I don't know. Did Thunderbolts come out this year? I think. I'm pretty sure it did, but like, because they always the topic is like, what is the best superhero film this year? Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, Superman. I'll get into that in the next video, because the next video is gonna be Fantastic Four First Steps. I got a lot to say about that. But yeah, I think 9 out of 10, great film. I'll definitely watch it again with friends. You know, and if it's on Blu-ray or if it's on HBO, I'm gonna watch it. I love James Gunn, and I think he's a great creator. I'm more excited to see what he does, and I'm also the biggest Peacemaker fan. Love Peacemaker. Love John Cena. Oh my God, that's one of my favorite shows of all time. I can't lie. Like, I actually really love Peacemaker. I feel like that Peacemaker surprised me how good it was. Like, that was one of the only shows that I watched every Thursday when it came out. That was really cool. I put everybody on. I kept telling everybody, watch Peacemaker. Like all of this, you know, I kept singing the praise of Peacemaker. So I think, yeah, and that comes out later this month. So excited. But that's it. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all later. And yeah, stay tuned. See ya.